Going to start. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Dr. Syed Ali Naqvir. I'm chartered psychologist and CBT and EMDR consultant, which are actually different types of psychotherapies. I work in NHS as head of two psychological services. So welcome everyone. And I think as people would be coming in, we will carry on talking. And if there are any questions, please, you have two options. We will have a question answer break towards the end. But there's no harm to raise questions via chat box. Like you can send questions via chat. So today's basically topic is quite vast, developing emotional resilience. And we would be focusing on resilience in relation to pandemic and impact of pandemic. In today's webinar, we would be essentially and primarily be focusing on how to manage our emotions, because emotional life and emotions are vital in terms of our psychological health, our quality of life. So we'll be talking about that. So today's our focus is on to know what the common emotional stresses can be during a crisis like pandemic. We will be developing an understanding about our emotions and their impact on our well-being, resilience, and decision making. The third major focus or objective of today's webinar is to learn or to impart some of the fast acting skills. Those are psychological and therapeutic skills to help us manage anxiety, worry, anger, guilt, and low mood, and to eventually support or be able to support our well-being. When we talk about different types and levels of emotional stresses or sources of emotional distress or stress, with specific reference to COVID-19, we can see certain common things. And I think from your experience or experiences, you would be able to identify these factors quite clearly. One common phenomena that we have been facing, and it is still going on, is massive and overwhelming sense of uncertainty and unpredictability. We use in corporate sector a term which is very popular term, VUCA word. VUCA is an acronym. V for volatile, like situation is not stable, it's ever changing. Uncertain, like nothing is really exact or certain, and we don't have really 100% or guaranteed level of certainty in many areas of our life. Complex situation is not simple. It has many faces, many dimensions. It's very complex and ambiguous as well. Ambiguous means like nothing is quite clear. Things are vague. We start understanding certain things, but we get lost in many areas. So this is VUCA word that we were thrown as a result of pandemic into. We have been dealing with conflicting demands and resulting decision inertia, are really an inability to make clear decisions or to move towards one direction. And conflicting demands have been overpowering us from work side, from family life, from interpersonal relations, like multiplexity of sources, including financial difficulties. So what happened actually during the first lockdown, we eventually moved overnight, literally within a couple of days from a physical existence to a virtual existence. Virtual means our reality was changed. So as a result, systems, structures that we were used to or we were working under, communication, everything went actually into a different like flavor and mode. And we were never actually familiar with those things. Uh, we went into a very restricted and abandoned life as a result of COVID-19 lockdowns. And soon we realized that we are now part of a traumatic or shared traumatic reality. And there is an emotional contagion. Emotional contagion means overwhelming or prevailing and radiating negative emotions from one human being to other human beings. And all the emotions or just this contagion was flavored with negativity, loss, dread, fear, and frustration, and a sense of helplessness. People would be suffering survivor's guilt, like we could see our fellow human being dying in thousands and eventually in millions across the world. We were living with a sense of loss. And this sense of loss was coupled with a sense of guilt, particularly with those families and people who have lost their loved ones as a result of COVID-19 infections. And the people who have been working in different organizational settings, in their personal lives, particularly the family members, those were decision makers, would suffer this sense of guilt or in organizational terms, moral injury, like where you want to do something or you want to make a decision, but you are unable to make a decision, or you are bound to make certain decisions which you don't like, and those are against your moral values. I mean, it has been happening more of a with NHS staff, those have been working on front line. There was an over reporting of emotional numbness, experience of emotional numbness, and a loss of compassion to self, others, and from others. There was a complete shake-up in personal lives, flavored with stress, worry, fear of failure, loss, sleep deprivation, and ongoing fatigue. So we need to realize and really be reminding ourselves that we are also humans. We have unattended emotional needs. We are at greater risk of compromising emotional well-being in crisis situations. Our emotions are tied up in our identity, which is inseparable from our family life, work, and the organization we work for. There is always a risk that in crisis, objective analysis and decision making will be subsided by our personal emotional reactions. Our positive or negative emotions are likely to be transferred to others, including our family members, work colleagues, relationships, the way we communicate, the way we cooperate or willing to cooperate, the way we coordinate, and our overall effectiveness would be impacted by these emotions that we experience. So the theme is, or the aim is, or the punchline is that we are in, as a human being, we have unattended emotional needs, and those become more unattended in the event of crisis. So we are in greater need of understanding our emotions. So when we talk about emotions, we have three emotional systems. Like instead of I should be counting on to types of emotions, we will touch base on that as well. But let's talk in terms of emotional systems. We have three emotional systems, and on the basis of those three systems, we can create a balance in our lives. So we have one emotional system that is called drive system, where we focus on action and achievement. It gives us feelings of alertness, energized, excited, motivated. This is more of our work and career oriented arm of emotions. Then there is defense system. In this type, like in drive system, we want something to achieve. We are motivated to do to achieve. In defense system, we don't want actually. And what is that? We focus on safety seeking and avoidance, fight, flight, or freeze response. We feel unsafe, anxious, fearful, angry, disgusted, overwhelmed, threatened. And this is defense system. And then there is a soothing system where we are focused on self-care, empathy, warmth, and kindness. We feel grounded, safe, connected, content, soothed, and at ease. So if we look at our experiences during this pandemic, and we can clearly see, I think, and you all would agree, our defense system or that arm of emotion has been overpowering or dominating the other two systems. And it happens, these systems would never stay in perfect equilibrium. At one point or at one given moment or times, one system would take a bit lead or dominance. Like when we are really high achieving and we are doing our career ambitions or working on some academic achievement, our drive system would be overpowering or dominating the other systems. And during this threat and fear experience of pandemic, our defense system of emotions has been quite overpowering almost 24/7, and we have been under threat. So whenever one system tries to or becomes dominating the other, we need to actually work on the other system to enhance. And particularly during COVID-19, we had the need to really strengthen our soothing system a bit more. And actually today's journey is more of a empowering and knowing and learning some skills to really develop or enhance this self-soothing system, which is more needed the crisis we have been going through in the form of pandemic. Centuries back, Stoic philosopher Epictetus noticed something very important. He noticed, and many Stoic philosophers like writing, this is not just Epictetus, but some other fellows as well. There was a theme that was traced. Theme was people are disturbed not by things or events, but by the views which they take of them. So this line is very important and has been the basis for many modern age psychological interventions or therapies like cognitive behavior therapies. A lot of professionals in modern world, psychologists and psychiatrists, they have actually adopted this theme and have developed many good approaches that we would be actually discussing briefly. So looking at that principle, the principle says that this is not event which creates, or person or something that happens which creates emotions in ourselves, or physical body response, or makes us to behave in certain way or the other way. It's not event which is directly related to create these things in us as human being. So it is not the events again that upsets people. It is the personal meaning we have for them. And so event is, so any reaction that we experience in the reactions are three types. So one is emotions, the other is how we feel in our bodies, heart racing or deflated or something like that, or we want to or don't want to do certain thing, that is behavior. So these are direct result of events or things. Rather, these are results of the interpretation of that event, how we actually interpret that event or what we believe about that. So this is something very important. So this is very important that the way we think about something actually creates a lot of psychological states, including anxiety, depression, or guilt or anger. All the negative emotions or positive emotions are basically the way we interpret, look at things. So, for example, we call about depression. Depression is a feeling of loss and low mood, and you feel really hopeless and not and unhappy. So you can see there are some common themes where someone is feeling depressed, and these themes are based around self-criticism, loss, and hopelessness. So you look at things with these things in a very critical way, in a sense of loss and hopelessness, and then anxiety. You feel a sense of threat, danger, and vulnerability. In the form of anger, you can see that someone has broken your rules or someone has acted in a very malevolently or unjustfully to you, that's making you angry. In guilt, actually, we have broken our rules. You have broken your ethical or moral rules. There's also a memory recall and attentional bias. And that means when we are upset, when we are anxious, our brains are likely to have the similar types of thoughts rather than the opposite one. Like if we are unhappy or sad, we are less likely to have thoughts or memories or to be able to pay attention to those things. Those can potentially make us happy. So when you are upset, depressed, you won't be having things those can make you happy. So this is quite like, this is called memory recall. We will be having more of a memories. Those would be very depressing, sad events. In the similar, when we are feeling anxious, under threat, a lot of negative thing of similar type would be happening, coming to our mind, and our attention would go very selective. We would be looking towards only threat related, like materials, and we won't be able to think something opposites which can basically counterbalance. In crisis, we are more likely to fall into the trap of unhelpful, irrational, repetitive thinking patterns we call thinking errors. Those errors would lead us to experience stress, anxiety, depression, guilt, or even traumatic stress. Errors in thinking can lead us away from emotional well being and from purely rational decisions to those based on purely emotions, cognitive biases, and information biases. And we end up into having decision biases. We will be making some decisions in our personal lives or work lives. Those are not really helpful or helpful to anyone. So moving a bit forward, um, when we talk about irrational and unhelpful belief, or thinking errors, there are four types of, these are universally uh, like researched and found. There are four domains of unhelpful thinking that we fall into those domains as human beings. It's not, it's just like some people would fall. Actually, we all human beings at time, particularly in the stress or crisis situation, we are more likely to be falling into those unhelpful thinking patterns. So one is high demandingness. High demandingness is that a type of thinking where we start thinking in musts and shoulds, like we must be like that, or things or someone must be like that. So it's quite like must and high demandingness, that something must be like that. And the second domain of cognitive like errors or irrational thinking is awfulizing. This is actually, all the domains are linked with each other. So we will be thinking that people must be behaving in a certain way. Or, for example, I must be successful in each and everything. I must get a job wherever I apply. So the next thing is offlizing. Offlizing is basically, that means if I must be successful in everywhere, in everything. And if I'm not successful, that means it's awful, it's terrible. So it's offlizing. Like we awfulize to the maximum level, like about the offlizing, awfulization of things. Something is terrible, catastrophic, awful. And next domain is, which comes afterward, that is low frustration tolerance. And that means, again, if something, we must be successful in everything, and if I'm not successful in everything, that means it's awful, it's 100% terrible. And the low frustration tolerance is that I cannot stand that, I cannot tolerate that. And the fourth one is global rating of self and others. And because I must be successful everywhere, and if it is not, because I cannot be, I'm not successful everywhere, I've failed somewhere, that means it's terrible, it's awful, 100%. And I cannot stand that, I cannot tolerate that. And if it happens, that means I'm not good enough, I'm a terrible person, I'm failure. So, so these are actually four irrational thinking domains that we, all human beings, usually are stuck into these things in the and we are more vulnerable in the form of distressing situation or crisis situation. So let's move forward. Like there are, on the basis of those four domains, you can come across these types of unhelpful beliefs that people would have. So there's a whole list of things like belief that people would have in different ways. Like, for example, one must always be competent. It can be I, myself, or other. Like my children must be securing grade A in each and every exam. So this is a must. One must always have approval. We should be approved, whatever we do, by others. We should be liked, we should be lovable in each and every situation by all human beings. Whoever comes on our way, we should be loved by them. Situation must go according to plan. Whatever we make a plan, it must go like that. And again, I'm reminding you, if it doesn't go, that means awful, and I cannot stand that, and that means other people or I'm really failure. Unhappiness is caused by external factors, like never going to accept any responsibility. One must worry about unpleasant situation. Many people go into worrying habits because they believe worry is something very obligatory and mandatory and ethical for them to worry about things. And if they don't worry, that means they are not caring about something. Unpleasantness must be avoided. If something is unpleasant, we must avoid by all means. The last one, like these are types of thinking, and we you can find many similar themes that we come across or we have at times. All problems should have a perfect solution. Like if there is no solution, that means terrible, it's awful, and we cannot stand that, we cannot tolerate that. And if that happens, that means we are really in a terrible state of affair, and we are going to fail, we are going to die, or we are going to end up into something which is really unacceptable. Um, can I ask you to please do a brief exercise on your own? Um, and the exercise is very simple. Can you think of a situation, any recent upsetting situation where you were caught up into? It could be anything related to family, work, anything that you were really upset, and just try to revisit the situation, run through your mind and think, were there anything similar like high demandingness? Were you using in that situation must and shoulds? Or you were really awfulizing that something terrible is going to happen? And were you really saying to yourself, I can't stand, it shouldn't be happening, I cannot stand, I can't tolerate? And were you trying to judge yourself or anyone else? Just, I'm giving 5 minutes. Please, if you just think of some recent situation, and if you could come up with that, and I would appreciate if you could share that. I mean, it shouldn't be anything confidential or personal, or if it is personal, then you shouldn't be using the name or relationship or anything which is identifiable. I'm just like taking a pause for 5 minutes. Okay, thank you for your time. Anyone wants to share something? If you have come across anything or you are able to remember anything, can you please share? Please unmute yourself, and if there is anything you can share, please. I'm seeing the chat, but that is a different topic, like whether someone should be on medication or not. That's we can discuss towards the end if you want to raise as a question. Um, but if you mind, if someone has come up, yeah, please, I can see a hand. Someone is raising hand. I'm not sure who is that.
Sure. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Imran.
Walaikum assalam.
Um, so I actually found myself doing this in real time today, funnily enough, particularly as it pertains to COVID as well, now that the restrictions lifted. So just by background, I'm an immunocompromised person. I was allergic to the vaccine, and I've basically been told to try and stay indoors until we reach herd immunity as a community. Members of my household are vaccinated, and subhanAllah, they wanted one of them at least wanted to go out today to a child's birthday party within the government guidelines. And I found myself feeling this high demand of, hang on, don't go. You shouldn't be going because I'm shielding. Shouldn't you be shielding with me? There was a sort of importing of my, or sort of projection of what burden was placed on me onto someone else. I came to realization it was wholly unreasonable. They're vaccinated, and my limitations shouldn't stop them. But I was sort of awfulizing it to the point of, is this an affront to me or my personal safety? Do they not care for me? Very, I remember thinking, and I was sort of catastrophizing in a way that I don't usually do, but I saw myself doing it in real time. Um, and, you know, and the low frustration and tolerance aspect of it was, well, okay, can I or can't I stand this? Should I be allowed to make this demand upon someone? And at that time, I felt highly justified in saying, don't go for my sake, not able to twist it round and say, well, don't they need it for their sake too? Um, and the global rating of self and others, well, it was more to do with when I came to the realization afterwards of, oh my God, what kind of a monster am I for trying to stop another human being from living their lives just because I'm not in the position wherein I can go about behaving quote unquote normally within legal strictures. So that's one that came to me immediately as you were going through the list today.
Yeah, I think this is one of the examples that we would come across. Thank you for coming up with this example. I think there's quite a lot of things in terms of learning in this example. And just to remind, like these things really, as you are explaining, these things happen quite automatically. We are not like for the sake of understanding, we are looking at in a different, like in four dimensions, but these are quite interconnected, and these things are in the mental life. These are not likely to happen in a necessity in a sequence. They can simultaneously, in a way, emerge, and but the result is that you feel really some level, some degree of distress in your body, in your thinking, and sense of dissatisfaction. Let's move further, which will make a little bit further clarity about that. Uh, this is another exercise, but I won't ask you to necessarily be doing for 5 minutes. Like you can do, but just to be aware about that. No, one question that might have come to your mind actually, if we are falling into these four domains like high demandingness and awfulization and low frustration tolerance and global rating of self and others. So what is the alternative basically? What we should be having and how we should be having that, like the way of thinking. So normally uh, you need to practice. First step is that you need to be aware whenever you are feeling distressed, it is good to look at your thoughts, because our beginning or initial point was that everything happens the way we look at things, like whatever the emotional reaction we will have is basically likely to be the interpretation of that event or what is happening to us. Like Imran's situation is an example. In that situation there were some interpretation, and how we interpret things, these are four cognitive domain that whenever we go under challenge or stress, we are likely to think within those parameters, and those are unhelpful, leading to further like distress. So what we need to do, we need to acknowledge when we are distressed, what is happening. Are we using high demandingness in our head, or are we using some thought those are really based on awfulization and low frustration tolerance we are asking to ourselves that we can't stand. So what we need to do, we need to try to reframe our beliefs. And again, this is not one-off thing. You need to really practice. And the best thing is looking at your past situations and maybe using a piece of paper and spotting, like Brother Imran has done, like spotting the where it was high demandingness, where it was awfulization. So just picking up a situation from the past and as if revisiting or reliving that and writing what is happening from those four domains, and then thinking, trying to reframe that. For example, the best starting point to reframe those beliefs is thinking in three criterion, you can say. One is asking yourself, if I say to myself that I must be loved by everyone, is that logical? Does it make any sense that I must be loved? I must be, number one, must be loved by everyone. Is this something realistic, logical? The other thing is it realistic? Does it really exist in reality? Have you been able to know anyone at any point in your life that someone was loved by everyone? Like, honestly speaking, for for the last 40 years in psychology career, I haven't been able to see not a single human being who could blame they were loved by everyone. Like in we are fallible human being, and I think we would have 10 friends, but there might be two, three people those won't like us. And that's fine, because reality is that we accept that they actually none of the human beings would be loved or liked by everyone on the earth, except like Masumin. We are not talking about the infallibles. And then third thing is pragmatic. Is that a helpful belief? If I believe that I must be loved by everyone, by all means, at every time, is that pragmatic? Is that helpful? Pragmatism means, is there any usefulness in that? So these are three questions. Logic, we should be asking whether it is logical. Is it realistic? Does it exist outside of us as well? And is it helpful? So, for example, high demandingness, instead of must and shoulds, we need to think of dreaming of, like to, wish. And honestly speaking, the difference between human being and Allah the Almighty is that actually He only has this discretion to say the must and should and kun fayakun. So as a human being, we can only dream of something. We can only like, wish, long for something. And that is realistic, basic, and that's logical. We cannot say must and shoulds. No, no one can say must and shoulds. So we would need to, if we reframe the same high demandingness where we are saying we must, if we replace with we dream, we wish. For example, if I'm wishing that my son should achieve a good grade in their exams or in his exam, so one thing is I say you must. I continuously like be asking my son, you must, you must, you must. So and then you can know what will happen. Like when I say you must, that means I'm putting some stress on them, and they might not be able to really achieve that because of that stress. So the same thing, when we say must to us, we are putting really an unusual pressure on us. And but if we say like I wish that you get really, I dream that you get really good grade, that is motivational, that is realistic, that is helpful. Awfulizing, like, is very interesting that something can be annoying or upsetting or unpleasant, but it is not 100% awful or terrible. That there is no other worst thing in the world like that. And if we think like that is awful, terrible, like we are causing unnecessary actually stress level, or we are building or generating stress levels in ourselves. Other is low frustration tolerance. Like I can't stand that. Like for example, the reality is that we have been standing a lot of things, even more annoying and upsetting than the thing we are thinking that we cannot stand at this point. So again, thinking how helpful this is, how realistic this is, and how logical is that. Then global rating means instead of judging on the basis of one frustration, one thing, we shouldn't be judging ourselves or anyone else. Rather, we should be looking at particularly those things only, rather than judging as a person. Like we cannot judge a friend on the basis of one thing. Oh, that's a bad person. So there should be unconditional positive regard, compassion, and acceptance. Unfortunately, as human beings, we are our own biggest and the worst critic as human. Uh, I'm just moving into another area. Hopefully, you must have understood the whole thinking or the way of thinking is important in terms of making us upset or keeping us relaxed and calm and in control of ourselves in difficult situations. Another thing is very important. We have three time zones. One is past, present, and future. And this question is, honestly speaking, very important to know how much we are invested in which time zone. Like if we have 100% attention or power of attention 100%, we need we can easily judge where our attention is invested the most, and particularly in the like crisis form. Yeah, very interesting, like sharing. I'm just reading um, like the comments. Those are very interesting comments. Yeah, okay. So we can easily say or see where our attention out of 100 is really focused, and particularly during a time of crisis or stress. Like you can see with depressed people or when we are really in low mood, our attention is likely to be dominantly focused in the past. Like it's more of a thinking about a thinking pattern that is called rumination. Rumination means you try to fix the past. You think about why and what why we should do, or why someone has done, why I did that, why that happened to me, and it should not have happened. Like it's really trying to I must not have done that. It's self-attacking feeling of guilt for not having something done or having done something which wasn't right, a sense of guilt, depression, low mood, and trying to fix the past. And you would be amazed to know people would be spending hours and hours during 24 hours trying to be fixing the past, staying in the past, and without doing anything basically. And that is where actually depression would be further becoming worse and worse on a daily basis. Then there's another extreme, which is where when we feel under threat or danger or fear, and we actually pay more attention on future. Future means you're anxious and you're scared of something. And just to make clear, the difference between fear and anxiety is the fear is where we actually know the direction, like something is in front of us, which is dangerous, like snake, a lion, or something which is quite like harmful. That is straightforward sense of fear, like fear. We are scared of something. But anxiety is a fear from within. It is fear, but we necessarily don't know the direction of fear, where it is coming from. And in humans, usually it is very distant worry or thing which can bring us to the mode of like survival, which is fight flight mode, which is fear reaction. So when we invest too much attention in our future, that means we are feeling anxious and worried. And these time or focus of attention is invested into what if something goes wrong, what if I didn't make it, what if something happened to my children, what if something goes wrong with my job, what if, like, it's quite like you are in a chain of negative thoughts. Those are majority of the time hypothetical problem. We are going to discuss on worry, and that is worry. And people, this is one end is rumination, where you are focused invested in past. The other end is, and you are feeling depression and guilt. And other end, the extreme, is you are invested into future and distant future, which is not closer to you at all. And you are spending hours and hours in worrying about something which hasn't happened or which might happen or which could happen. And it's very interesting, like sometimes we go into very unrealistic sort of worries and hypothetical worries. And we lose the sense of possibility and probability. Possibility is that something can happen. For example, a building can collapse at any time. It is possibility. But what is the probability actually? Probability is where you can anticipate in the percentage of chances that something can actually happen. Like so, this is where actually when we become anxious and highly anxious and scared and under threat and fear, our sense of possibility and probability actually get lost. And that's actually we more of a in a mode of catastrophizing or foolizing about the things. So the reality is that you cannot fix your past, you cannot fix your future, which is at a distance. But where you can make changes, which is in your hands, and where change would happen is basically your present, where you are, where all the resources are, where you can start making a difference in many ways. And unfortunately, if your attention out of 100, 60% is invested into future, and 30-40% is invested into the past, and maybe 5-10% is in the present moment, what will happen in terms of changes in your life or positive changes in your life? I think you would be far away from bringing about any healthy or positive change. So this is where actually we need to be more focused. I mean, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be thinking about future or shouldn't be thinking about past, but it is unusually too much invested into both ends. So for example, out of 100% attention, if we are invested maybe 60% in present and 20% in the past, or 20% in the future, or maybe 30% in the future, and 10% in the past, that is fair enough. Then we can work on our realistic problem and we can manage our stress. We are going to speak a little bit further on that. Let me check chat if there is a question or anything like that. I would refer it to Brother Azhar because people are requesting for recording. I'm not sure whether they can have that or not.
Yes, we will provide recording. Yes,
Okay.
on YouTube. We will send the YouTube link to all the registered people. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So moving forward. So what we need to do, we need to some way train ourselves to keep or stay focused a bit more in present moment rather than in future unnecessarily or in the past. And that is where actually you must have heard about mindfulness. Mindfulness means you stay more connected to where you are with all your resources and in a very non-judgmental, least critical and self-judgmental mode. So for example, a very simple exercise that you can do, I'm just sharing this with you, is basically, it is training your attention. You can self-train your mind. And one of the things are attention training. Attention training is you can start in a very simplistic way, and that is like slow down, calm down. First, take 3 slow belly breaths. We can, as I'm talking, you can go through that. It's very simple exercise. Okay, so take a couple of deep breaths. Belly breaths means not a shallow or chest breathing or fast breathing, because with chest and shallow breathing and fast breathing, if you breathe faster, it will make you anxious or upset. But if you breathe slowly and from abdominal side, as if you're holding a balloon on your lap, and as you breathe in, it inflates, and as you breathe out, it deflates. Like just imagining and slow and deep breathing from belly. So this is just a tip how you should be doing the right breathing, which is relaxing, because incorrect breathing can cause anxiety rather than making you feel relaxed. So just taking a couple of deep breaths. And can I ask you to list in your mind 5 things that you can see right now? Can I also ask you can I ask you to feel 4 things? You can touch 4 things. It can be your cheek, your body temperature. It can be your desk. It can be arm of your chair. Just 4 things to feel their temperature, their surface. Can you please try to hear 3 things around you? Just focus and scan through your environment where you're sitting and try to hear 3 things. It can be sound of some car which is passing by, or children playing in the ground. It can be sound of air. Just hear, try to hear and count on to those 3 things that you can hear. Can I ask you to list 2 things that you can smell? It can be fragrance that you have used. It can be a food smell that you like. The last one is list something that you like to taste. I mean, if you have in front of you, you can taste actually, but I'm not expecting that everyone is sitting on dining table. So just imagine there's something you want to taste and remember how it tastes. How do you taste that, and how do you feel when you taste that or eat that thing? So this is just an exercise, an example of how you can train your attention to be focused in present moment and develop a habit wherever you are. Try to count on to things that you are attending. I usually give an example to my clients. I would ask them to think of a very strict manager who has assigned you a task. Wherever you go, you would need to give me a detailed report when you return to office. And detailed report should include whatever you are seeing, colors, textures, whatever you are hearing or listening, and whatever is there, whatever you are smelling, just bring a report back to me. So if you have to comply with your manager's demand, you would be likely to be paying more attention on to the thing that you are actually coming across wherever you move. So just paying attention where you are rather than staying in the past in your head or worrying about future. So this is very important. All the mindfulness exercises are around these things to bring your or to train your attention to be staying where you are predominantly. Okay, something is we were talking about that we are the most critical of ourselves as human beings. So, and we need definitely a compassionate approach, particularly during any time of crisis. We need more compassion and care to ourselves, to others. One of the impacts of the, the COVID-19 or pandemic has had on many people was that they lost sense of compassion to themselves, to other human beings. And it was really damaging and one of the factors of increase in distress levels. Uh, so what compassion tells or asks us to do is to learn to regulate difficult emotions in a very non-judgmental way. Like you don't need to avoid to see or look into your emotions, but you can see without judging them. It is good or bad. I must not have, or I must be in that way. Like again, not with high demandingness or awfulization. To develop skills to foster like compassion needs or means to develop skills to foster feelings of warmth towards self, encourage ourselves, practice self-kindness, and develop resilience. To realize we don't suffer alone. There is the sharing of human experience. And to develop skills to live in the present moment mindfulness, which we have discussed, like just discussed that. So I would suggest we need every moment, every day to give ourselves what? Time. It is okay to go slowly. You need to move slowly at times. We need to give ourselves kind words. We need more kind words rather than critical voice that is always happening or running inside of us. We need to give ourselves forgiveness. We are all fallible human beings. We all make mistakes, and that is okay. We need to give ourselves praise. We are awesome, awesome. A human being, as Imam Ali has said, is a cosmos, is a universe in itself. So we need to really be thinking and trying to own that that we are awesome as human beings. We have amazing potentials and capabilities and strengths. We need to give ourselves space to grow. We need to give ourselves permission to set boundaries. We don't need to be all over the place to sort out our things, or uh, we need to give ourselves rest and space. We need to give ourselves validation. Whatever the way you feel is fine, it's okay. If we are scared, if we are angry, it's okay. Accept that. I would be just going through a couple of tips about worry management. As I was talking about that when we are worried in anxiety, basically our attention is more invested into the future unnecessarily, and we are catastrophizing and awfulizing about things. Oh my God, it is terrible, it's catastrophic, it's awful what is going to happen. Just a moment, let me check. I'm really sorry, I'm missing some of the. Can we check these, I mean, on chat a bit later when I have finished the presentation, and then we can go through if there are any queries, questions, or suggestions. I will be able to highlight that if that's okay. So worry is a major theme. Like, it's very interesting during this COVID period. One of the major complaints that was actually raised and during my communications and conversations with a lot of anxiety depression clients, that was increase in worry. And people would be spending, because people had time, they were sitting at homes, they were having less or least control on their lives in terms of what they could do or they cannot do, or they were able to do or not able to do. So the only like experience that was quite overwhelming to so many people was increase in worrying and catastrophizing. So, like, just looking at situation, for example, where worry would be starting, like someone sitting at home on a sofa, they would feel tiredness, headache, muscle tension, or agitated, for example, any physical symptoms, which would be interpreted like something catastrophic is going to happen. It could be that they are getting COVID infection, or maybe something which is not known or not diagnosed. They are going to catch up. So it was leading towards worry about health or anything else. And then worry means that instead of going to do something, because a lot of things would be hypothetical. I'm going to talk about that in a minute, that you cannot do basically a lot of things about that. So you would be sitting and just worrying. So the behavior would be you are going into a behavioral pattern of worrying massively and excessively. And a lot of worries would start, what if? And people would find an obligation to continue worrying, because if they don't worry, they might be losing something, or something terrible might happen to them or to someone else they love. It's very interesting that when we worry, actually we go into fight flight human mode. Like Allah the Almighty, God has created us with some survival equipment or tools, and one of the survival tools is fight or flight response. Whenever we feel any threat to our survival, or we feel any danger, the instant response would be a message would be sent to our body, the there's a danger, there's a threat outside, and what will happen? Body would start working on an emergency and urgency basis to get ready, either fight the danger or to run away from that danger. There is a third response, which I won't talk, that is freeze. Like, that is a very primitive response that you get frozen instead of fighting or running away. So this is a very natural response. Actually, whenever we catastrophize, we become anxious, we actually feel threat in one way or the other way. For example, if I worry that what if my loved one gets some infection, COVID. So that triggers basically uh, the fight flight response in our body, and we are likely to go into fight flight. And fight flight mode, I won't go into detail, but heart uh, would start racing. A lot of things would be like happening in terms of hormonal. Adrenaline would be thrown with high amounts in our blood flow. And the purpose of all that is to get us ready to fight or flight. But interestingly, the many thoughts are just thoughts. Those are not real dangers. But as a human being, we actually, our body reacts in the similar way almost. So worry is often experienced as a chain of negative thoughts, images, and doubts about things that might happen in future. It's a danger about future. We typically worry about things where the outcome is uncertain. And uncertainty has been the hallmark of this all period that we have lived more than 1.5 years. So there are two types of worries. One is hypothetical worries, concerns about the future that what ifs often have no solution or are out of your control. Like if I worry about 6 years later, what will happen to my house? This is a little bit hypothetical thing because 6 years are quite far from today. And I cannot really link my present reality or present circumstances clearly or accurately or in a helpful way to the next 6 year in 6 year time. So then there is another category of worries. Those are practical worries like current and imminent problems. Those may have a solution basically. So what I'm trying to say, that going in a worrying habit or worrying behavior is not a way forward, whether it is hypothetical worry or practical worry. We have some other options to do. For example, if I'm worrying, I'm feeling anxious, tense, and scared about something. What if? And I'm not clear what I need to. I would be asking myself: is it a current worry that I can do something about now? If it is yes, for example, if I'm worrying that how I'm going to pay my bill for this month, or how I'm going to travel while my car has broken down. So this is really, if this is immediate thing and very practical thing. So I will be, is it a current worry or a realistic worry? In other words, if it is yes, if so, make a plan to do it. What is stopping to you? Like I will be using structured problem solving. I would be looking at what the actual problem is, what are the alternative solutions or potential solutions, X, Y, Z, or A, B, C, D. Then I will be picking up one solution to apply rather than just sitting on sofa and worrying about that what if, and making myself anxious. And if the answer is no, for example, is it a current worry that I can do something about now? If it is no, it is something, as I was talking about, at a 6 years distance, then there's a technique which is called worry time. So you can use worry time to help let it go. So worry time, we are going to speak about that. So worry time is very interesting technique. And some people really feel quite like amazed that how this can be possible, but this is a very possible thing. Worry time is designed to help us manage our worry better, in particular hypothetical worries. Those are distant. You cannot do something today. It is time where you can actually worry, but we limit this time to 20 to 30 minutes in 24 hours instead of worrying for the whole day. Like you need to set up a time each day and every day on a certain time. For example, ideally it should be midday between 2 and half past 2, for example. That is my worry time, half an hour. I would be, whatever the worry is, you need to postpone worry and think yourself, I will think about that at 2 o'clock today or tomorrow. When worry would come again, and you need to just postpone rather than entertaining them. It's like a guest. Someone is knocking at your door in a very at a very odd time, and you need to just say to them that, look, we have set up a time to meet at 2 o'clock. So when it comes to 2 o'clock, then you have absolute freedom for 30 minutes to think about all the worries, whatever is coming to your mind. You can list it out, you can do, but it is worry time basically, 30 minutes. But the moment 30 minutes is 30th minute is over, you need to stop and you need to start postponing again for tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Again, it takes time to develop this habit to postpone worry. So it requires plenty of practice. Again, it's not the straight away you can start there, but can help us to reduce and get better control over our worry. Again, this is basically in addition to mindfulness exercises, practicing your training to be here and now, like in present moment, that actually in like coupling with this worry time, it can be really helpful. Throughout the day, we can refocus our attention from our worries and back into the present by using our senses. Again, the same thing I'm talking about. Other is if it is a practical worry, like if I have to pay a bill in 10 days time, that is a practical concern. It's not just a worry, it's a practical problem. So there's no way forward to just continue dwelling on that and worrying, what if I am unable to pay my bill? What will happen? Oh my God, I would lose this. So instead of worrying in that way and catastrophizing and awfulizing and judging yourself that you have been really a failure because you haven't been able to earn money to pay these bills, like instead of self-attacking, we need to work out or move towards practical solutions, structured problem solving. Some problem can appear too big to solve. You need to be mindful. So meaning we put them off for long periods of time. It's more likely that actually, if we look at problem as a from a really bigger, uh, from an external view, and without looking deeper into the problem or maybe breaking it down into smaller steps or pieces, it would continue making us worried. So the interesting thing is the more you feel anxious, the more it will invite further anxiety and worries. So take a step back and look at the whole picture. Okay, break it down into smaller, more manageable steps. And many times, practical problem solving requires to be able to really spot the exact problem, because many times problem is in the west or in the south and we are struggling in an opposite direction, maybe east or north. So you need to be, the first step to problem solve is to be specific and clear about the actual problem, what the problem is, to start working on that. And then moving into thinking of provisional um, like solutions to that, and finding one or opting or choosing one and then applying that, and then again revisiting whether it worked or it didn't work, and you need to find another solution. No, I'm moving to the last bit of this presentation. It's very important skills that I'm going to really talk about that. And these skills are, number one, quite fast acting, very easy to learn and implement, and very effective to really manage your emotions and distress and develop and enhance compassion and resilience. So this technique, which is called butterfly hug, is one of the most powerful techniques of EMDR. EMDR is a type of uh, psychological therapy. It is an acronym of eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. It was developed during the late 80s, and it was originally developed for traumatic stress, but now with research and practice, it has developed up to the level that you can utilize in day-to-day life, in other presentations, in different stressful situations. The core theme of this butterfly hug, which I'm going to actually teach you in a minute, um, is that is it helps, the butterfly hug helps to stimulate our brain's two hemispheres, right and left. And by this stimulation, actually, brain would have an opportunity to reprocess or consolidate the distressing materials and bringing to the surface the more healing and healthy and helpful materials or positive strengths. I'm moving on, like how you would be doing. Can I ask you to just try to follow, and I will try to run a video to really demonstrate that, and or if we are unable to watch the video, I can do it in your like with yourself. So it's very simple. Cross your arms over your chest like I'm doing in front of you. You can see myself. Place each hand on your upper arm, shoulder area, or chest, wherever you're comfortable, basically. And you can close your eyes, or you can keep open, or half close, or half open. Begin gently tapping each arm, one side, then the other side, like this, back and forth. Begin to notice your breath and try to slow and lengthen your breathing as you continue to tap. In time of feelings of anxiety will reduce and feelings of safety will increase. This is what happens. Try to observe any thoughts, feelings, images, or sensations that arise without judgment, like they are clouds passing by. So this is a very simple technique. Is that understandable and you can easily do? We are going to actually practice a little bit on that. So this is very simple technique, but it's very powerful because this stimulation that we are doing right, left, this is actually stimulating our right and left side of hemispheres of brain. And it, it, the stimulation would empower or give an opportunity to our brain to really process or reprocess all the disturbing materials or distress, and to bring up our healing resources, those we have in ourselves. Again, I would remind you to the great saying of Imam Ali alayhi salam that um, all the disease or calamities of self are in yourself, or within yourself. I'm just trying to translate as much as I can do. All the remedies and healings are within yourself. You consider yourself a small organism when you are really a cosmos, a universe in yourself. So the main means all healing and calamities to some way are lying within our mind, our life, our inner self, and we need to bring up those difficulties or problems, and we need to bring up those healing resources. Those are in within ourselves, and that actually helps perfectly in that way. So I'm trying to share this video to you. Just watch that. And this is basically two young boys are using this butterfly hug. It will give you a flavor how you are going to do, and then we will move into exercises to apply that. Are you able to see that?
I don't know, Assalamualaikum. I don't know why mine is not coming up. I'm not able to access it.
Sorry, no one can see that?
I don't know why I'm not able to access it. Assalamualaikum. I don't know if everybody else is just, I don't know if it's just me.
I mean, it might be everyone. Can it take some other? Is anyone able to watch the video, or it's not coming up?
I can't see it either.
Okay, let me, actually, I would need to share that. Just a moment. Can you see now? Can everyone see now? Okay, yeah.
I can see.
Okay, thanks, I'm seeing.
Okay. Were you able to see that the way they were doing, just to make you aware, they were doing a little bit faster. You don't need to be doing really running like that. Like you need to be doing in a not too much slow that it doesn't make any difference, and not too fast that it should bring some distressing material that you might not be able to work on your own. So this is an example of butterfly hug. Normally, how we do that, there are two types of uses of butterfly hug. One is that we use for building resources, and resources means it can be anything positive about yourself. It can be an image, it can be a color that you like, it can be a thought about yourself you want to have about yourself. I'm really a good husband, or I'm a good wife, or I'm a good worker, or I'm a good doctor, I'm a good like team member, or I'm a good neighbor, anything about you, or I'm really skillful. I really think positively. So anything which is positive about yourself, you can enhance or um, strengthen that positive trait about yourself. It can be something imaginary, not necessary that you believe that that is in your life or about you. You can imagine something. And imagining means it can be a nurturing figure, a person, or a character, or a spiritual being that you want it to be in your life. And you can create and strengthen with the help of this butterfly hug. I'm going to do. So this is one thing that you can nurture, you can strengthen your positive resources or traits. And again, it can be a positive thought about yourself, which you want to believe, a positive sentence, or something might have said about you, any friend or any staff member or any colleague or anyone might have said something really positive about yourself, and you want to strengthen that. It can be a positive memory from the past where you felt really calm, confident, and really stress free and relaxed in your life, and that memory can be used um, to strengthen as a resource or develop as a resource. Or as I have told you, you can develop, you can create a nurturing figure for yourself. So this is one thing, and you can do it with the help of this butterfly hug, which is called bilateral stimulation, like dual attention stimulation in a way. So this is one use. The other use is basically if you're feeling upset about something, if you are distressed about something, it can be that you had a really bad day at your work, or someone might have said something really good, bad that has made or that has been playing on your head throughout the day, and you were very upset. It can be a physical sensation, just like stress or fatigue, sense of fatigue on your shoulder or any part of your body. It can be any distressing thing that you can really work through with the help of butterfly hug. So now we are going to go into this exercise, and I would like to invite you all to please do that, because this webinar is primarily aimed to impart some skills that you are actually able to use in your lives. Otherwise, like just talk or lecture or knowledge, I think you might be more knowledgeable because there is a lot of knowledge around on the internet. You can Google, you can search, and you can find plenty of things. But the opportunity for this webinar is that you are working with a professional in the field, like myself. I have been working in the field of psychology and mental health for the last 40 years. So this is a real opportunity for all of us to really share the experiences and learn something. And these are very simple skills. Those are not going to be taking extra or additional time. These butterfly hug techniques or technique you can use anywhere, wherever you are, in your office, at your work, It hardly takes 2-3 minutes to do really. So we are going into that. So first, as I told you, there is to how to develop a perfect nurturer. Again, it can be a thought, it can be a figure. So the first thing is I'm inviting you to please practice with myself. What qualities would you want your image to have, which you want to set up as a positive nurturer? Please try to include all the important qualities that you want, such as they are a figure which is very caring, wise, warm, stronger, and non-judgmental, accepting. Like for example, you need to think of what physical attributes you can see or people are able to see or you are able to see in your positive, perfect nurturer figure. What do you smell when you imagine your positive, perfect nurturer? What you can actually embrace or feel when you touch your perfect nurturer? What tone of voice that actually perfect nurturer has? What other qualities, as I talked about, like wise, compassionate, so anything that you can think of that you want your perfect nurturer to have as a trait, as a quality, imagine that. And what relationship do you have with your positive, perfect nurturer? What type of relationship you want, you can imagine. So these all things you need to basically be just focusing. Can I ask you to take 30 seconds to really think of something positive? And again, it can be just a positive or soothing color or a positive statement about you. So it doesn't necessarily need to be a being or something who has a lot of things in that. It can be anything. A positive statement about self-affirmation about yourself can be fine. Just think, like for 30 seconds, if you could please think of that. I'm not going to ask, we will carry on. I'm a bit mindful about the time and we need to really be moving a bit further so that we have some time to have some discussion as well. So imagine that positive statement, figure, image of your perfect nurturer that makes you feel better. And start imagining that by closed eyes and start using butterfly hug. And butterfly hug with your closed eyes, concentrating on your perfect nurturer. Try to feel the images, sensations, sounds, colors, features of the perfect nurturer with deep and slow breathing, as we discussed earlier. You need to do it like 6 to 8 times. Bringing your hands back on your lap, taking further 2-3 deep breaths, and then starting again. Try to feel how you're feeling in your body as you imagine that positive figure or nurturing image. Bring your hands back to your lap. Take a couple of deep breaths. Again. Again, you can do it anytime, anywhere. It's very simple and it's very um, um, effective, and you need to really test it out. So moving further, no, this is another use of butterfly hug. What I'm going to ask you to please do, this exercise shouldn't be with open eyes. It should be with open eyes. It shouldn't be with closed eyes. Or you can maximum keep your eyes half closed, half open, not completely closed, because there's the reason I'm going to say you. So for positive, nurturing figure or image or statement or self-affirmation, you need to keep eyes closed and trying to remember all the good features that those are helpful or make you feel better. But for this overcoming distress, we need to reduce our distress when we are upset. You need to keep eyes ideally open or half closed. So what I would like you to do, think of a whole disturbing day event. It can be past, it can be current, going on, it can be future, worry, we were talking about, anything. Imagine something which is making you upset. Again, this shouldn't be major trauma or very serious happenings or incidents. We are not working on that, because for that, you would need professional help, which is structured and organized and long-term help if there is a traumatic experience. We are not talking about traumatic experiences or long-lasting or long-term problems. So think of a whole disturbing day event. It can be past, current, present, or future. Now, run a mental movie of that disturbing thing with open or partially open eyes. I'm asking you to please try it out as much as you can. A to Z, like a director that you are running a movie of that disturbing event. Again, it should be a minor disturbance. It shouldn't be major traumatic events. Okay, once you have run the movie from A to Z, now please scan through your body for any physical sensations in any part of your body and rate the subjective unit of distress or distress level from 0 to 10. 0 means no disturbance, physical disturbance, I mean, and 10 means the maximum, the highest level of disturbance that you can feel when you are running that movie about the disturbing thing. Now, start again butterfly hug movement. Now, rerun the movie again from A to Z while doing this butterfly hug. Just observe what is happening to you in your mind, in your body, without judging or trying to change it. Once you have come to the end of that movie, stop, take 2 deep breaths. Again, scan through your body for any physical sensations. Re-rate your subjective unit of distress level on 0 to 10 scale again, like you did before the butterfly hug. And be mindful if the distress level is 4 or above 4 or more than 4, continue to do the step 5 and 6, like using butterfly, running the movie and using butterfly hug. And once finish the movie, you can again take deep breaths and re-rate and until it comes down 0 to 3 level. Is that clear? So again, use butterfly hug anytime you experience disturbing emotions and or physical sensations. Please do the butterfly hug with open or partially open eyes. Observe what is happening to you without judging or trying to change it. Let it happen, come and go. Stop when you feel in your body that it has been enough and lower your hands to your thighs. Take 2-3 deep and slow breaths. It hardly takes 2-3 minutes. So we are done now. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to check like the chat, if there are any questions or.
Yeah. Assalamualaikum, Dr. Shed.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Um, how do you deal with suicidal thoughts? Where can we get help?
Yeah, I mean, you are in UK. Can I check? Okay. So for UK, if you are, I mean, number one, suicidal thoughts are very usual thing when you have low mood and depression symptoms. And definitely, as human being, we go through a lot of difficult things. It's very likely to happen. Like these are symptoms, the way you have symptoms for fever, for example. When you have infection, you will have fever, you will have shivering or cold. Those are physical symptoms. But when we are emotionally disturbed, suicidal thoughts are the similar way symptoms of an emotional difficulty. But there is, so this is one thing you need to remind that it can come and go. Like symptoms and fever can come down, can go up, and then can go away. The similar way, these emotional symptoms can go away. These are not permanent things that you need to be really acting on those things. What you need to do very quickly, one is you need to speak during office hours to your GP. GP is the major person who can help you to direct towards the right service. But if you don't have, like you need help maybe middle of the night, then call 999 or 111. 999 is the best, and 999 would give you different options. One option is for fire, for some other and one option is if you have mental health crisis, you can straight away tell them that you are feeling suicidal and you fear that you might do something against you to harm yourself, and you need instant, immediate help. They will guide you further. If it is daytime, you can pop up into accident and emergency and they will deal with you. So there are plenty of help options. The other thing is there is an organization which is called Samaritans. So Samaritans, they are 24 hours helpline, telephonic helpline, and you can call them and they can provide you with the language you would need, the opportunity to speak to someone. So these are the options. Speak to your GP, call 999, and or if you are closer to some hospital, go to accident and emergency. And during this time, try to be with someone. Don't stay alone. Don't stay on your own. Try to be with someone, and it's good to get some help from your friend or family member. You can explain to them that you are having this difficult time and you might need at very odd time to get some help from you. So get them agreed so that you can call them or you can be with them. Is that helpful?
Yes.
Okay. So any other questions, please? Any other question? We still have some minutes, and if anyone wants to, I was just going through basically the chat. Just a moment to see if there is.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr.
Walaikum assalam.
How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you very much. Really, really very insightful. Lots of practical strategies to manage anxiety and many emotional, sort of building emotional resilience. I just really wanted to know, so these days younger students as well are being sort of prescribed medication, and so family members get into a state of shock. Could you just advise, usually when people have short-term anxieties and it's quite overwhelming, and as students, and if they are being prescribed antidepressants, is this a long-term kind of medication, or often people can gradually sort of come off it, and are there any side effects?
Yeah, I mean, I think the aim of all the medical professionals is not to prescribe anti-anxiety anxiolytics or antidepressants for a long-term basis until unless there is a desperate need or clinical reason. So this is one thing for sure. And in majority of the cases, actually people would come off. And these medications are not addictive in nature, so you don't need to be worried about that.
Right.
But what as parents you need to do, you need to be finding really psychological support and psychological help, and that is through talking therapies. And I can tell you, doesn't matter whatever the anxiety or type of emotional difficulties are, there are really evidence-based, experimentally tested treatments available now. And UK is really among the leading countries where you can find really help. And the best port of action is that whenever you speak to your GP about the child, stress that actually you want some psychological treatment rather than leaving this young man or lady to be taking medication. And always share your concern and reminding them that actually there are psychological help options, and that people need to be really utilizing.
Yeah.
Because if you don't raise the thing, anxiety medication could be helping the person to manage anxiety, but that is not a long-term solution, frankly speaking. So eventually, the young person would need to learn the skills, and those are therapeutic skills. And therapy is like learning driving. I can give you this crude example. It's a two-way process that during a course of therapy, which is usually weekly sessions, an individual would learn skills like learning driving to drive their emotional life. And there are very successful skills. And I have seen like hundreds and thousands of people really recovering they came with very hopelessness and quite pessimistic approach that their life is not going to change anyway, and they they be staying for the rest of their lives on medication. But they were treated with the help of like psychotherapy and talking therapies, which is purely psychological techniques and skills. I'm not denying that in many cases you need medication to develop a base to work for psychologically, but it's very few cases. It's not like 80% you can say people won't need medication, and 50% of them would be unnecessarily put on medication.
Sure.
So it's just like, I mean, you can take my email and I'm more than happy to advise further if you could give me some further details about the problems of child. I'm more than happy to like advise further and see, because you're a resident of UK, so I know what type of services can be really potentially suitable for
Sure.
them.
Sure.
So
Thank you
I'm
very
just,
much.
yeah, I'm just writing my email for everyone if that can help. Yeah, this is, you can. Okay. Yeah. Has everyone received that email? I'm a bit doubtful. It's not moving on. It hasn't gone. The message hasn't gone to everyone.
No, it hasn't.
Yeah, just let me check what has
I
gone.
haven't seen it.
Yeah, just a moment. I think. Let me put everyone here. Everyone would be able to see that.
Yes, it's visible now.
Yeah, thank you. So if there isn't any other question, then maybe we can say goodbye to everyone. Again, thank you very much for joining this webinar. Again,
Could you email a while so I can get it, please?
sorry, what you're asking for?
The email address, could you leave it a while on the screen so I can get it? I didn't get it.
Oh, okay. No, I can send it again. Like,
All right.
just a moment. Can you see now?
You need to see in chat box. Yeah.
You need to see in chat. Okay, can everyone see that email? Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you, Miriam. Okay, so this topic is really quite vast, and the plan was that we are going to speak maybe next, which is very important step, which is sleep, because a lot of people have been suffering sleep issues during this COVID, and sleep is a very vital thing, and it does impact on many areas of our lives. We don't realize, and we take quite lightly about the sleep, and we think we are sleeping okay, but believe me, sleep patterns and the way we schedule our sleep habits, or we develop sleep habits, those are very important in like helping us to stay um, healthier in our life and to keep our well-being intact, emotional well-being. So that's the plan. So hopefully we will set up a new date to really go through insomnia and sleep-related problems. So thank you very much once again, and all the best. Speak to you again, inshallah.
Yeah,
Take care. Bye.
bye.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.